What are the biggest question marks on the Florida Gators roster for 2025? You're going to be mad at me.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen, your host as always. Happy Thursday. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Just saying, again, appreciate you. Find me on Twitter, WNS_Brandon. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And like I said, we're going to talk about the Florida Gators' biggest question marks right now. And you're going to be mad at me, and that's okay. I can take it. Go ahead. And I'm going to say this because I think that we have formulated here with Locked On Gators a safe space for opinions. It isn't. But I'm going to say we have, okay? For me, I think we have to start with the biggest question mark as DJ Lagway. Okay, all right. Thought someone was going to throw something at me there. And I say that, not that he's bad. I don't want to say that he's bad. That's not what I'm saying, okay? Just want to make that clear. I am not saying that he's bad. But I am saying that the expectations are sky high for him, right? Like the expectations are very high. That alone makes him a question mark after his true freshman season. Because we saw DJ Lagway play basically half of a season in 2024, right? He spent the first game, he didn't come in until Graham Mertz got hurt. Then he played against Samford, started against Samford, played the whole game against Samford until Aiden Warner came in. Then Graham Mertz was back for week 3, and they rotated, what was it, every 2 drives Graham, 1 drive DJ, until the Tennessee game when Graham Mertz tore his ACL, and he was out for the remainder of the season. And then DJ Lagway got injured against Georgia in the first half. I believe it's the second quarter, though, but first half. And then he missed the remainder of that game. He missed the entirety of the Texas game, and then he came back and wasn't healthy, right? We all know that, yes, he came back, but he was not healthy. He had the band that we could all see running down his entire leg because of his hamstring injury. So that while we saw him play 11 games, or 12 if you include the bowl game, 12 games out of the 13 possible, there is a big difference between seeing him start for the season and seeing what we saw last year, right? And look, I say this to say that if he stunk last year, we would still say, oh, small sample size, he needs more experience. He played well last year, but that was a small sample size. We've seen it go the opposite way, right? Where a guy puts his film out there, and then after his first offseason, teams know how to attack him and how to defend him. And so we see them make that adjustment there. So I'm not saying that he's bad at all. I'm just saying that I still don't think we really know what DJ Lagway can be. Because we saw some games where he was on fire and looked really good. And then we saw the Tulane game, right? And I will say this, he was definitively not good against Tulane. But you know what? I'm happy the Tulane game happened. I'm happy that he went out there in the bowl game and put together. I know that he, set the record for passing yards in that game. I understand that. But he put together a little bit of a stinker, right? Little bit. It was a bad game. Okay, I get it. The passing yards, great. Good job there. But it wasn't a good game for him. And I'm glad that he had that bad game in the bowl game. I'm glad that he had that bad game in a game that was largely inconsequential, right? It's not like it mattered if Florida won or lost that game. They were there to play the youth, play their young guys, see what they have for next season, and go about that way. So I'm glad that he had the game because it was ugly plays, bad decisions. I mean, both of his interceptions were bad, right? I think that most of us can agree with that. I think they were horrible interceptions. But it's good that it happened. It's something for him to say, hey, this is how they defended me. These are the mistakes I made. Let's watch the film, figure out what else I could have done, what I should have done, and how I can correct these mistakes that I made. I'm glad that he had a bad game against Tulane in the bowl game where he has the whole offseason to work and develop and try to fix and correct what was wrong, because it means that he's not having that game in week 3 of 2025 against LSU, week 4 against Miami, week 6 against Texas. It means that he's not having that game when it really matters. He had it in a inconsequential game. Like I said, that game, useless. There really wasn't much to it. It was just, hey, we're going to play the youth. We're going to see how they develop, see how they work, and we're going to hope for the best here. That's the time to have it. But DJ Lagway and the offense in general last year was very boom or bust, right? We spoke about this for a long while, that they were not playing sustainable football. They weren't. Offensively, it was big plays or nothing. Or you can run the ball a bunch and that was it. But throwing the ball underneath wasn't working. It wasn't effective in the slightest way. They weren't having success with it. The underneath and intermediate games really weren't there. So for Florida, and I will say this also, that the Tulane game helped, I think, DJ Lagway recognize that. Because they rushed 3, dropped 8, and they treated him like Caleb Williams, which is a compliment, right? They treated him like the number 1 overall draft pick. They rushed 3, they dropped 8, they took away the deep ball that he's looking for, and they tried to make him go through multiple reads, try to figure things out. And DJ Lagway, of course, had the hamstring that was keeping him from just taking off and running and trying to make them pay that way. But he then made mistakes, which that's going to happen, right? Like we saw that before. We've seen it plenty of times, especially with quarterbacks that like to throw deep. They struggle, and then you see them come back down to earth, and the growth is when they adapt or how they adapt to that. That was a huge thing with Patrick Mahomes. Early in his career, he's just taking the top off the defense all the time. Teams started playing too high. He had a rough year. And then he adapted, and he was right back to the elite of the elite category. Perfect there, right? So for me, it's more so about not if DJ Lagway is going to be good, but how DJ Lagway is going to take last year and develop. Because again, we know that he's going to work his, I'm going to say it, we know he's going to work his ass off, right? It's about how you develop after that Tulane game specifically, and what you take from that, learn from that, and how you grow from that. And so it's not me questioning, it's not me saying he's a question mark of, oh, he's bad, is he going to be good? It's me saying he's a question mark of, I think he was pretty good for a true freshman. I don't think he played sustainable football, but I'm very interested to see what those next steps are going to look like for him, because for me, that's where the question mark lies, of just, we don't know what he's going to look like now that he's had a full year at the University of Florida. We're going to stick on offense for the next question mark on this roster. Something tells me you guys are going to be annoyed with me there as well, but it's fine. I'll take the bullets for you guys when we get back with Locked On Gators. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm going to tell you what, I'm not even going to talk about anything they want me to talk about. I'm going to talk to you guys about what I did the other night, which was this Sunday night? Monday night, I want to say. It was Monday night. So I bet San Antonio Spurs to record 100 points in the first 3 quarters. Okay. I bet Cavs to score 100 points in the first 3 quarters. This was Spurs versus Wizards, Cavs versus Timberwolves, Oklahoma City versus New Orleans. I bet them to score 100 in the first 3 quarters. And Lakers against Jazz, I bet them to score 100 in the first 3 quarters. All of that happened, and I turned the $10 Eli Manning kick of destiny bet. I turned that $10 into $753, baby. Let's do it. Great odds, great return. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. If that wasn't the best ad read, I don't know what possibly could be. I just want to throw that one out there. But when we're talking about these question marks for the Florida Gators or on the Florida Gators roster, I think I have to say wide receiver. And that's, again, similar to quarterback. It's not to say they're bad. It's just one of my biggest question marks if I don't really know what to expect there. Because when we go back to, we'll say the 2023 recruiting class, right? When we go back to the 2023 recruiting class, it was Trey Wilson, who I think the big question mark around him, there's two really, right? It's one, is he going to be healthy? And two, is he going to play wide receiver or is he going to play gadget boy again? Because I don't want to see that. I really don't. I don't want to see him be Inspector Gadget. I want to see him play wide receiver. So Trey Wilson, 2023 class, I think he's really dynamic. We haven't seen him play receiver. Aiden Mizell. Everyone loves him. I love him. I think he's going to be really good. We haven't seen him play that much, right? We haven't seen him play consistent snaps at receiver, which is kind of ridiculous. Because I feel like we pretty much unanimously agree, hey, he looks pretty good, right? Like we saw the Mississippi State game where he just broke out and broke tackles and was outrunning everybody and was just going nuts, right? Like we saw that, okay? So we saw that. We saw anytime he had the ball, it felt like he was a threat to take it to the house, right? Samford, he had the great touchdown catch. Georgia, he had a great touchdown catch. But we, for whatever reason, didn't see him play consistently. The other receiver in that class is Andy Jean, who's transferred to Pitt, I believe he's at now. Okay. So we have Trey Wilson in 2023, who got hurt last year, got hurt the year prior, and played basically gadget. And then Aiden Mizell, who didn't get on the field consistently for 2023. Then you go to the 2024 class. You got Tank Hawkins, barely played. TJ Abrams, barely played. That was it. Right? That was it. Your receivers were Elijah Badger and Chim DK, and then behind them was pretty much nothing. Trey Wilson had the third most catches on the team, and he played 3.5 games. That's nothing. Arliss had the fourth most catches. He's gone. Like, we haven't seen much. And then, of course, 2025, we love the receiver class they brought in, right? Vernell Brown III, Dallas Wilson. I mean, both of those guys are 5-star caliber receivers. I don't care what any ranking service says. I don't care what their recruiting sites say. Both of them, 5-star caliber receivers. Okay? Then you got Nay Montgomery, who was a 3-star that should have been a 4-star. And then you got Muiz Tunkara, who, personally, I love Muiz Tunkara's film. I don't think he's going to do anything this year, but I love his film. But when you look at the receiver room, Chim DK is gone, 42 catches. Elijah Badger's gone, 39 catches. No one else had even 20 catches, let alone more than 20 catches. So when I talk about the receiver room, I will also say this. I feel like I've been pretty consistent here, especially when we were talking about Billy Gonzalez and his contract, which expired at the end of January, but they set up an extension. But we have no idea about the receiver room. Again, I can't say they're bad. I can say that I think they've got a lot of talent in that room, but talent needs to be refined, right? You need to develop technique, and we haven't seen that. I'm not even saying that they're bad at it. I am saying that because we haven't seen some of these guys, I do think it's absolutely fair to question how much they are truly being developed. I think that's a fair question to ask, because we have no proof that they've done anything there, right? Trey Wilson has never really run routes. then this isn't a knock on him. Okay, I'm not saying that he's a bad route runner. I'm saying we don't know. I think that the way he moves, he should be able to run routes. But it's not just about how you move, it's about technique as well. And so it's not as simple as that, right? Kadarius Toney freestyled on routes all the time. So That's one of the reasons that NFL teams weren't huge fans of him, because he kept freestyling. And so Trey Wilson, can he run routes? Will he be healthy? Will he be allowed to run routes? Will they play Aiden Mizell consistently? Aiden Mizell looked really good with the ball in his hands, looked really good on vertical routes, winning the catches there. Great. But we never saw him consistently. The 24 class, we didn't see them contribute. The 2024 class had what? Tank Hawkins had 10 catches on the year. TJ Abrams had 2 catches on the year. It's nothing. They averaged less than a catch a game when you count all 13 games. They averaged less than a catch a game. Like we can't say that we know anything about that room. I'm not saying they're bad. We just haven't seen them. So they have to be a question mark. We haven't seen any of the receivers that the Florida Gators have recruited out of high school play wide receiver consistently. Every year they've done the thing that we fault Miami fans for with quarterback, right? We talk about, and yes, of course, more wide receivers can play than quarterbacks. Absolutely, we agree there. I'm not saying it's the same exact situation. I'm not saying it's apples to apples. I am saying, though, that every year I sit in Twitter spaces with Florida fans and Miami fans, and Florida fans always bring up, oh, well, why do you guys, why are you guys even hyping this high school receiver or this high school QB? You guys just keep going into the portal, getting a guy above him, and then basically the kid hits the portal eventually. So you guys just keep going into the portal and replacing your high school quarterbacks. Why does that matter? You could say the same thing for Florida's receivers. Every year that Billy's been here, the best receiver has been a portal guy. Every year. Last year, both of your best receivers, the only 2 productive receivers you had, were portal guys. We need to see these high school receivers that come in with great high school film, great measurables, and they just look like balls of clay. And at some point, as a coach, you need to mold them and teach them, and we haven't seen that yet. So that is why the receivers are a question mark for me, because I don't know what they look like. I can't say that they're good or bad. They're dynamic as hell with the ball in their hands, but if they're not on the field, they can't get the ball. That's it. So we don't know what we're going to see from them. Hopefully pretty good this year, but they've got to be a question mark because we have no clue what they're going to look like at all. Like not even much. Trey Wilson, let him run routes, please. He looks such a fluid mover. He's the kind of guy where you watch him with the ball in his hands, you're like, he could probably run routes, right? Like he just has insane acceleration. Like he could probably run routes. Just about actually doing it. We're going to flip to the defensive side of the episode, or for the rest of the episode, when we get back with Locked On Gators. Nice to make a Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, reference the podcast and on YouTube. Side note, completely unrelated, but I've had Dochi's nosebleeds stuck in my head for like a week now. I just want to throw that out there. And if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It's awesome. Just gonna say that. But we're gonna wrap up today's show talking about the biggest question mark on the Florida Gators roster that is not on offense at this point. I know that also the Insider program, which the link's in the description below, I asked them their thoughts. A lot of people said right tackle. A lot of people said wide receiver. A lot of people said secondary, edge rushers. We're going with edge rushers here. And also, if you don't know, I will somewhat frequently ask the insiders their thoughts. I will have already had my show prepped and had my notes written. So it's not that it's impacting it, but I'm just very curious to see what other people think. And edge room was the third one that we had here. I was between edge and secondary, but I figured secondary, we at least generally know what we're getting from the safeties. So there. But the edge room, Tyreek Sapp, damn good football player on the edge, right? Like he has taken some significant strides, and a lot of it I do know is some of the offseason work that he did there, and just really locking in. That was it. But we're looking more at the Jack side of things, right? More at the stand-up edge room, we'll say. He lost a lot, honestly. That's one of the biggest reasons that I think they have to be a question mark here, because Jack Pyburn is gone. TJ Searcy is gone. Justice Boone is gone, and I know a lot of people don't care about Justice Boone being gone, but he played on average like 14 snaps a game, so that's pretty significant for a team that played what? They had 971 snaps total, defensive snaps total in 13 games. They played 75 snaps per game. He played 14. That's not nothing. It's a pretty significant chunk. A lot can happen in those. But those three players combined, 834 snaps. Again, for a defense that played 971. And I'm not saying that they were on the field for every snap except for those, 167 there. I don't think I did the math right there. 137? Something like that. We have calculators, right? So I'll say that. But they were on the field at the same time together. But that's a lot of snaps that you've lost, which means that there's 834 snaps up for grabs. And yes, a guy like George Gums is going to play more in 2025 than he did in 2024. And yes, a guy like LJ McCray is going to play more in 2025 than he did in 2024. And yes, a guy like Jaden Woods, true freshman, people are expecting him to contribute somewhat significantly. And Cam James should be playing more. And Aaron Childs, if he's going to play more on the edge again, we'll see what happens there. I'm not saying that they're bad here. I'm saying, again, question marks. Regardless of how you feel about Jack Pyburn, TJ Searcy, Justice Boone, George Gums, LJ McCray, whoever it may be, regardless of how you feel about them, we don't definitively know anything about the production that's going to replace the guys that left, even with the guys that are here. Like that means that new players are going to need to play significantly more snaps. You can say what I've said about Jack Pyburn and TJ Searcy. They're run defenders with little pass rush skill set right now. I don't think Jack Pyburn will ever be a good pass rusher. I do think TJ Searcy can become a good pass rusher, but he just never really got developed there. I don't think he took many steps from the time that you watch his high school film until you watch even the end of the 2024 season. I don't think you saw much pass rush development from TJ Searcy. Like he didn't get much better at all. Had a couple tools, but never refined them. It was interesting. It was odd. Even Jack Pyburn wasn't good, but he got better. And so maybe it was just one of those things where TJ Searcy, despite having some physical traits, was just capped out. I don't have to tell you. Justice Boone was never going to be an impact pass rusher there. But, again, they played 134 snaps to your defense, and you need to replace that. And just for reference, George Gums played 435 snaps. That was still a lot. He still played the 9th most snaps. He played more than TJ Searcy and Jack Pyburn did, and Justice Boone, of course. There's only so many more snaps he can play. He played the most snaps on the defensive line. There's only so many more snaps he could play. LJ McCray going to take more snaps, of course, but he's going from 181. Let's say he gets up to 435. That's another, 250 snaps added? You still got almost 600 to replace. The reason that the edge room is my question mark is not anything about the actual talent that you have there right now. It's that there's so many snaps that need to be replaced. Cam James is going to play more. Yeah, all these guys are going to play more, but there's still a ton of snaps to be replaced. And even if we think they're good at this point, I know a lot of people like George Gums. I'm not as high on him as other people. Not that I think he's bad at all. I just see people calling him a first-round pick, and I don't think that that's the case, at least definitely not right now. As in for the 2026 draft, of course. I don't see that at all right now. I think he needs a lot of refinement there. But even if you think he's great, he can take on, another 100 snaps maybe? LJ McCray could take a big stride, but again, that's like he can only play so many snaps. So even if we think they'll be good, even if we project them to be good, we don't know that. And here's where I know people are going to start calling me a nerd because I'm saying projection and all that stuff. I don't care. But I've been very open about this as well. I feel like I've been rather unimpressed with the overall development of the edge room. I think that's not a hot take. I think that you've seen quite a few guys at this point leave and have bigger years after they've left. And so I don't think that anybody should feel super confident about the edge room right now. Again, a lot of promise, but there's also 834 snaps that have cleared up. It's a lot. Got to see more. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Tomorrow, myself, Brian Smith, we're getting a crossover because not Locked On Seminoles. He is now the host of our new show, The Portal, which covers NIL, transfer portal, recruiting. It's a blast. It's a doozy. We're talking the 2026 class. We will be back with Brian Smith tomorrow for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.